Okay, in this presentation, I'm gonna teach you the third tool and actually the last tool that you need for your analyzing system. Please pay attention, there are not too many tools, just 3 simple tools, okay? Just learn the tools and use them correctly, okay? This tool, we call them APP or Fibonacci Expansion. You can find in MP4 with this Fibonacci Expansion in some other platform with name APP. Our goal from here, we use it for 2 purposes. One, finding the end of trends, another finding the end of corrections, okay? For both purposes, we can use Fibonacci Expansion. Our logic here is trend usually end around one of the special ratio of previous trend in the same direction. And correction usually end around one special ratio of previous correction in the same direction. I will explain it with example, okay? And the ratios that we use is 61.8% and 100% and 162%. For drawing it, we need 3 points. Please pay attention. For the last 2 tools, Fibonacci internal retracement and external, we use just 2 points, okay? For example, for internal, beginning of the trend, end of the trend. For external, beginning of the correction, end of the correction. But here, we need 3 points, okay? For finding the end of the trend, we need the beginning of the previous trend in the same direction. For example, right now, we want to find end of this trend, okay? This trend. Beginning of the previous trend, end of previous trend, beginning of last trend, okay? Here. And please notice here, there was a news bar here. And I told you in the troubleshooting of internal Fibonacci retracement that for our analyzing system, we neglect these huge news bars, okay? So instead drawing from here, I draw it from here, okay? Beginning of the previous trend, end of previous trend, beginning of the last trend. And these 3 ratios are our purpose. I add bars, and you can see the trend has ended around this ratio. The next example, again finding the end of the trend. Everything is the same. I just repeated because I want you to learn it very easily and quickly, okay? So, 3 points. Beginning of the previous trend in the same direction. We want to find end of this trend, okay? So the same direction trend is this one. Beginning of the previous trend, end of previous trend, and beginning of the last trend, okay? The trend that we want to find the end of it. They are the ratios. Add bars. And trend has ended around this ratio, okay? Here, 100%. Very easy and simple. Another finding for end of the trend, okay? This is a trend correction. We want to find end of this trend. Everything is the same. Everything is the same. If I show you 1,000 examples, all of them are the same. From beginning of the previous trend, end of the previous trend, beginning of the last trend. Add bars. Price has ended, trend has ended around this one. Okay, this is minimum for end of the trend. Typical and maximum. Now for finding the end of the correction, okay? For finding the end of the correction, in fact, I can say it's just as the same like trend. But this time, the 3 point is beginning of the previous correction in the same direction, end of the previous correction, beginning of the last correction. This correction is in down direction, okay, in here. So I draw beginning of the previous correction here, end of previous correction, beginning of the last correction. Add bars. Correction has ended around this. All of them are the same, all of them are the same. That's the beauty. Next one. What was the 3 points? Beginning of the previous correction, because we want to find end of this correction. Beginning of the previous correction, end of the previous correction, beginning of the last correction. Add bars. You can see the correction has ended around this Fibonacci ratio. Extremely easy and simple. If you want to draw it on 1,000 trends and corrections, all of them are the same. Now let's go to the MT4 and show you how to draw Fibonacci expansion or APB on MT4. To draw Fibonacci expansion on MT4, right click on this toolbars here, right click on it, and in here find Fibonacci expansion, double click or insert it here. Okay, Fibonacci expansion. And to draw Fibonacci expansion, draw from beginning of the previous trend, drag it, drag it, drag it, end of previous trend, then click here and drag it to beginning of the last trend. Okay, you can see trend has finished here. I draw it again, click on it, draw from beginning of the previous trend to end of previous trend. Okay, then select it by double click and drag it here to the end of last trend. Let's right click on it and properties, default, and the default are good. 61.8%, 100%, 162%. You don't need to add any level here, okay? That's. And these are the 3 levels.